Are you like me? Do you like microphone shootouts? Me neither. Well, I guess we're done here. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And send me money. Name your first child after me. If you've already got a first child, then just rename him. It's Ferg McPhilson. You still here? One masochist left, huh? It's probably me in the future. Hi, me. You ever get that thing taken care of? You know. So it turns out I've accumulated a few budget microphones over the years, and I'm curious to test them side by side. I've never actually listened to all of them in a controlled environment. This is a fairly quiet corner of the house, and I usually use a large diaphragm microphone in here. It's so quiet in here. I can hear my Fruit Loops digesting. I imagine of all the microphones I have, there's probably only 2 or 3 that the vast majority of people will be interested in. They're all low cost. Most of them I bought years ago. We've got 2 really cheap, like $50 range dynamic microphones, and I'll be comparing with 3 shotgun microphones, one of which is a Sennheiser ME66, which I'm recording with right now. It's on top of the camera, and it's plugged in through a Saramonic Smartrig as a preamp, so I can turn the preamp on the Canon camera way down because it tends to be kind of noisy. And I've got one small diaphragm condenser microphone. It's an ancient M-Audio Pulsar II. Came in a kit. I bought it like maybe 15 years ago. I don't think they even sell them anymore. But just as a point of comparison, so we can get a few variety of mics in there. These are mostly pretty inexpensive microphones, ranging from $50 on up to my most expensive is the RØDE K2 tube microphone. I feel like we're leaning. And the newest one I have is the Lewitt large condenser microphone. It's LCT 440, I think. Oh, it's right here. What is it? Oh man, I can't read that. All of the microphones, except 2 of the shotgun microphones, will be plugged into the computer via a Focusrite Scarlett 8i6 interface. 2 exceptions are video camera microphones with just the mini jack. So I'll plug that into a Tascam DR60D recorder. The preamps are better than plugging it directly into the camera. Should give a fairer comparison to the other microphones plugged in through the Scarlett. I plan to normalize the clips so you can get a fair volume comparison among them, even though obviously there are different sensitivities. But I won't do any other post-processing, although this room could use a little equalization on my voice. It's kind of a mud chamber in here. Echo! Nevertheless, we'll make it an even playing field. So what I'll do now is read a poem, and each stanza of the poem I'll switch to the new microphone so we can get a comparison. I'll post a link to the time codes, and that'll allow you to, jump between the microphones or just listen to ones you're interested in, although it might make the poem sound kind of funny. I hadn't thought of that. Oh well. Man, we are leaning. The camera's leaning over. What the? The Shooting of Dan McGrew by Robert Williams Service. A bunch of the boys were whooping it up in the Malamute Saloon. The kind that handles a music box was hitting a jag-time tune. Back at the bar in a solo game sat dangerous Dan McGrew, and watching his luck was his light o' love, the lady that's known as Lou. When out of the night, which was 50 below, and into the dim and the glare, there stumbled a miner fresh from the creeks, dog dirty and loaded for bear. He looked like a man with a foot in the grave, and scarcely the strength of a louse. yet he tilted a poke of dust on the bar, and he called for drinks for the house. There was none could place the stranger's face, though we searched ourselves for a clue. But we drank to his health, and the last to drink was Dangerous Dan McGrew. There's men that somehow just grip your eyes and hold them hard like a spell. And such was he, and he looked to me like a man who had lived in hell, with a face most hair and the dreary stare of a dog whose day is done, as he watered the green stuff in his glass and the drops fell one by one. Then I got to figuring who he was and wondering what he'd do, and I turned my head, and there watching him was the lady that's known as Lou. His eyes went rubbering around the room, and he seemed in a kind of daze, till at last that old piano fell in the way of his wandering gaze. The ragtime kid was having a drink. There was no one else on the stool. So the stranger stumbles across the room and flops down there like a fool. In a buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt he sat, and I saw him sway. Then he clutched the keys with his taloned hands. My God! But that man could play! Were you ever out in the great alone when the moon was awful clear, and the icy mountains hemmed you in with a silence you most could hear? With only the howl of a timber wolf, and you camped there in the cold, a half-dead thing in a stark-dead world, clean mad for the muck called gold, while high overhead, green, yellow, and red, the north lights swept in bars? Then you've a haunch for what the music meant. Hunger and night and the stars. And hunger, not of the belly kind, that's banished with bacon and beans, but the gnawing hunger of lonely men for a home and all that it means. For a fireside far from the cares that are, four walls and a roof above. But oh, so cramful of cozy joy and crowned with a woman's love. A woman dearer than all the world and true as heaven is true. God, how ghastly she looks through her rouge, the lady that's known as Lou. Then on a sudden the music changed, so soft that you scarce could hear. But you felt that your life had been looted clean of all that it once held dear. That someone had stolen the woman you loved, that her love was a devil's lie, that your guts were gone, and the best of you was to crawl away and die. 'Twas the crowning cry of a heart's despair, and it thrilled you through and through. I guess I'll make it a spread misere, said Dangerous Dan McGrew. The music almost died away. Then it burst like a pent-up flood, and it seemed to say, repay, repay, and my eyes were blind with blood. The thought came back of an ancient wrong, and it stung like a frozen lash. And the lust awoke to kill, to kill. Then the music stopped with a crash, and the stranger turned, and his eyes, they burned in a most peculiar way. In a buckskin shirt that was glazed with dirt, he sat, and I saw him sway. Then his lips went in a kind of grin, and he spoke, and his voice was calm. And boys, says he, you don't know me, and none of you care a damn. But I want to state, and my words are straight, and I'll bet my poke that they're true, that one of you is a hound of hell, and that one is Dan McGrew. Then I ducked my head, and the lights went out, and two guns blazed in the dark, and a woman screamed, and the lights went up, and two men lay stiff and stark. Pitched on his head and pumped full of lead was Dangerous Dan McGrew, while the man from the creeks lay clutched to the breast of the lady that's known as Lou. These are the simple facts of the case, and I guess I ought to know. They say the stranger was crazed with hooch, and I'm not denying it's so. I'm not so wise as the lawyer guys, but strictly between us two, the woman that kissed him and pinched his poke was the lady that's known as Lou. End of test. So which microphone do I like best? Well, all I can say is I use 3 microphones regularly, and the main one in here would be the Lewitt microphone, simply because it's the newest one, and I like how noise-free it is. And normally, outside on the video camera, I'll use this Sennheiser microphone. It's got a nice clean sound again, not much noise. This is a fairly expensive mic for me, but I bought it used to make it a little bit more affordable, and it works so great. I haven't compared it to other microphones in its price class, that is, but this one seems to work good, and I have no urge to upgrade. And I also use the RØDE Videomicro. So those probably are the 3 that I use the most. This because it's just easy to throw in a bag and just have it, especially for recording speech. It sounds quite a bit better than the microphones that are on a camera, say. That's it. I hope maybe you got a little bit of information out of this video, and I'll take a look at it myself, and I'm kind of curious to hear how the microphones compare to each other, even though I've listened to them all separately, obviously, in the past, so I have somewhat of an idea. Anyway, have a good day. What do you get when you cross a Jehovah's Witness with an agnostic? Somebody who rings your doorbell for no apparent reason. Were you ever out in the great alone when the moon was awful clear? Whoops, let's start over, 'cause I forgot my hat. I forgot it. I clean forgot it. Is this in focus?